My name is Laura Rasmussen, and I am an attorney in Ogden. I am a partner at the law firm of Farr, Rasmussen & Farr. And the purpose of today's video is this is a mentor training update, and I'm here to provide some practical tips for individuals who are already mentors or becoming mentors. I've served as a mentor for about the last 5 years, since the 2009-2010 timeframe when the program began. The Mentor Training Resource Committee, which I'm a member of, is essentially charged with training and providing resources to attorneys serving as mentors in the State Bar's program, and that would include today's training. Just to give you a little background and history of the committee and the mentor program, essentially when we started, our focus was recruiting new members, generating an interest in mentoring, and to try and publicize the program. I think it was important when we started early on to impress upon the legal community the importance of mentoring, and we wanted the program to be a success. Fortunately, that goal has been realized. And 5 years later, I think the program has become a huge success. We have many attorneys that are willing to become mentors and wanting to become mentors. And since we've don't have to focus so much, I think, on recruitment at this point, we've shifted our goals a little bit to talk more and to try and focus the training on becoming a mentor and what you need to do when you are a mentor. And so that's the priority and the goal today of this training, is to talk about the actual role of a mentor and how you foster a mentoring relationship with your new attorney. There are a couple different types of mentoring. There's both inside mentoring and outside mentoring. Personally, I've only served as an outside mentor, but I've worked with a lot of attorneys who have done inside mentoring as well. Inside mentoring is when you have a mentoring relationship with an attorney who is within your same firm. Obviously, that's one of the most convenient ways to mentor an attorney, and I think most of the large firms in this area have programs. However, outside mentoring is equally, if not more important. That's where you're going to be mentoring an attorney outside of your individual firm and potentially even probably outside of your practice area. And I think that's where some of the greatest need is because there are a lot of attorneys who are starting out who are not joining firms, who are sole practitioners. And those attorneys, as much as anybody else, need a good mentor to guide them as they enter the practice of law. Your focus as a mentor should be a couple of things. First and foremost, I think training of the new attorney. These people are just graduating from law school, and they don't necessarily teach you in law school where the courthouse is, how to file papers, how to get things done. And so a lot of what you're going to be doing as a mentor is just the basic hands-on day-to-day duties of an attorney. You're also going to be providing guidance and support for your new attorney. Basically, these individuals are starting in a brand new area. Many of them are going to be hanging out a shingle and not going to be in a larger firm, and they're going to have a lot of issues with guidance and support and needing you to be there for the moral support as well as almost technical support, helping them learn the ropes. You're there to share ideas. Most of you have been in practice for a while, and I'm here to give you some pointers today and share some of my experiences as a mentor and the practical application of these tips to your mentoring assignment or your mentoring relationship. When you have a new mentee, you're going to have an initial meeting with them. And I think that first meeting is very important. It's going to provide you an opportunity to get to know this person, to establish some ground rules, and I think first and foremost it's important to establish some boundaries with your mentee. So everybody's different as far as how much contact and what ways they want to stay in contact with their mentee, so make sure you're very clear. Do you prefer emails, phone, that type of thing? Is there a certain limitation? Do you want the mentee to contact you on your personal or home phone, or only the office phone. And so I think it's really important to establish those boundaries, because one of the critical problems that can arise in a mentoring relationship is not knowing what the expectations are. So if you prefer not to have your mentee call you on your cell phone or at home, don't give them that number, but also make that very clear at your first meeting. Conflicts of interest. A lot of attorneys are concerned about conflicts of interest with the new lawyer they're mentoring. While I think that's more of a theoretical concern, I haven't had it crop up very often in reality. But so I think as a practical matter, it's not a huge problem, but there are easy ways to ensure that you don't have a conflict of interest problem. First and foremost, one of the easiest things is when you talk about experiences or individual cases, don't refer to names of clients, don't refer to names of parties, don't refer to anything specific. Keep it very general, and that way you're not going to run afoul of breaching any confidences or having any conflicts of interest. If you do have a situation where your mentee is on the other side of a case, or at a law office that's on the other side of a case, just avoid discussing that individual case, and then always make sure if you're meeting at your office that if you would have any materials or anything in your office that individual could see regarding the case that would be confidential, just make sure you keep cognizant of that and put those things away before you have your meeting. Communication. It's really, really important to keep the lines of communication with your mentee open. Once you make that commitment to be a mentor, you have to take that seriously, and you need to be accessible to that individual. It doesn't mean 24/7, accessible, but you need to always be responsive to them. I actually had a mentoring assignment that came to me because the individual mentor that had been assigned to this new attorney would not make contact with them, wouldn't return phone calls, emails, and several months went by, and this individual could not get their mentor that they had been assigned to respond to them. Of course, here's this new lawyer, they've got to meet these requirements. They're the ones that have to meet those requirements and turn in their forms, and so they're stressed about that, they're worried about that, they want to make sure they do everything right, and if they can't get a hold of their mentor, that's just going to throw them into a panic, and so you want to make sure that you're always accessible. If you make this commitment, that you're always there for that individual, and if you return phone calls, return emails if that's the way you choose to communicate, but just make sure you're being responsive to them. The parameters of the meeting, I think your initial meeting, you need to talk about your mentoring plan. And there's many resources available. There's handbooks. I know the bar has online tremendous resources available to meet the goals of your mentoring plan and to come up with ideas and activities and things that you can do with this new attorney. And so talk a little bit about how often are we going to meet, how long are we going to meet, how are we going to structure our plan, and make sure you set goals and how you're going to meet those goals. You can have individual in-person meetings. You can do things, by phone. You can attend events together. There's many different ways for you to meet your mentoring goals. And so sit down, find out what your new attorney is most interested in, what areas of the law they're interested in, what types of things, experiences that they want to have. It's also a good idea to get to know each other personally, find out a little bit about their background, where they went to school, what things they studied, what they emphasized in law school, a little bit about their personal and their family life. And the reason I suggest this is because it can indicate to you some maybe potential stressors that may be going on in that lawyer's life. And so if they have a large family, they have student loans, they may be experiencing a lot of stress, financial pressure. Part of what we need to do as mentors is to guide and support these new attorneys. And so if you're able to identify areas that they may have particular concerns or problems or stressors in their life, you can do a couple of things. Number one, you're not only going to be able to support them, you probably have experienced that yourself, so you'll be able to share some life experience with them that's going to encourage them that it's not always going to be like this, and that they will eventually get over that. But I think also to be aware of some maybe potential bar issues. I think anytime an attorney is undergoing personal issues or stresses in their life, it can lead to problems with the bar. If they're not communicating with their clients, if they're taking on cases that they're not qualified to handle, those types of things. And so I think that's going to help you identify part of your mentoring relationship is helping this new attorney navigate the bar rules, the rules of professional conduct, and to avoid running afoul of those. And so if you're aware of their background and what's going on, then you can tune into that a little bit better. You need to set a very, very clear schedule. Depending on your mentees, some are better than others, but I found out in my experience that they typically have a lot going on. And so, you need to be reliable, be available, take it seriously. But by the same token, you have to hold your mentee to those same standards. And so not that you need to be parental in any way, but they need to keep their commitments as well. They need to be available and committed to the program and to take it seriously. As far as the mentoring plan goes, some attorneys, new attorneys come in and they're very focused on checking off boxes. We got to check this box off, this is required in that. And yes, that's an important part of mentoring. You do have to make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's and check off all of the boxes. But that's shouldn't be, at the end of the day, what it's about. And sometimes you may have to put your foot down with that new lawyer and let them know that, this is a relationship, this is a building experience. We're not just going to be sitting here making sure we check off boxes. And so that will really help you develop that relationship with this individual, because what we're doing is we are fostering a new professional. And it's very important that not just be about meeting the basic requirements. Some specific practical issues that I found new lawyers to be most curious about and wanting to discuss focus on procedure. Where's the courthouse? Whose clerk goes with what judge? What's the best way to get a hold of a clerk? Who do you call? What do you file when you need to do X, Y, or Z? And so they're going to have probably the bulk when you start out is going to be these procedural things. An offshoot of that is client relationships. So how do I meet with a new client? What questions do I ask? How do I schedule that? What do I put in my contract with the new client? What do I need to say? So one thing that's been helpful, I've actually had my mentees sit in on a day when I know I'm going to have several new consultations with clients coming in. I'll have them come and sit in on that and just watch that process as I'm interviewing a potentially new client about a case, and what you go through, what you need to explain, talking about your fees, your retainers, your billing practices, all of those things that need to be disclosed to clients in that initial meeting. How to run a law practice. So for those of you who are outside mentoring, you're most likely going to have an attorney that set up their own practice. So how malpractice insurance, just the nuts and bolts, billing, how do they take care of billing, how often do they do billing, how do they make sure that they're doing that billing ethically, what forms do they need, what things do they need to have their clients sign, handling personnel and things like that. These are all things that those of us that have been doing this for a while, it's second nature, and your law practice just runs itself. For a new lawyer starting out, though, they have to start from scratch and they have to build a practice. And so most of them are very curious to find out how exactly you do that. How do you make rain? How do you generate referrals? How do you advertise? How do you advertise ethically within the confines of the rules of professional conduct? That's very important as well. Another area that you probably want to talk or address is work-life balance. Being an attorney is very stressful, it's demanding, it takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment. And so finding that right balance. A new attorney starting out, they don't know what that right balance is. How much time is too much time? When am I overloading and I'm not being as effective as an attorney because I'm not having a right work-life balance? When am I not putting in enough time? Sometimes as well. And so just realizing that they need to take care of themselves, they need to take care of their practice, finding what works for them. And again, talking about fees, retainer, billing, that's very important. That's one area that there's potential bar problems. If the fees and the billings and the retainers and the trust accounts are not handled appropriately, and so that's something that you would definitely want to cover with that new lawyer. Making rain, building a client base, building a referral base, what works, what doesn't work, what advertising is going to work, what's not going to work, helping give them ideas. And so all of those things are things that they're going to be very curious about because they want to have a successful practice. In my experience, there's been a couple types of mentoring relationships. I've had very more high maintenance mentor relationships where your mentee is more needy and more needing guidance, and I think that's fine. Everybody's different. The important thing to remember is if you're in a high maintenance mentoring relationship, is establishing boundaries. Okay, and so I think if you do that, that's going to help you manage that relationship a little bit better. Then you've got the low maintenance relationship where the mentee kind of hits the ground running, and they may already be very comfortable and confident and feel like they know what they're doing and they don't need that much instruction. For those mentoring relationships, keeping that mentee on track and making sure you're keeping on them and they're doing what they need to do, that's going to be the most important thing for you as a mentor in that mentoring relationship, and making that a positive and successful mentoring relationship. Same practice area. You may have a mentee that is in the same practice area. I practice mostly family law, and some of my mentees have been interested in that area, some haven't. And so if you do match with your mentee in practice area, that's much easier because you're going to be interested in the same things, and they're going to want to be going to the same things. However, if you have different practice areas, sometimes that can be a little bit more challenging as a mentor. Not an insurmountable challenge, but you're just going to have to maybe be a little bit more creative in ways that you are helping your new lawyer focus on the areas that they're interested in. And a couple of things that you can do. Other attorneys can be resources. So for example, I don't practice bankruptcy, but I did mentor a new lawyer that was very interested in that area. So I went to my friends and my colleagues in the area and asked them if they would allow my lawyer to accompany them at trustee meetings, bankruptcy hearings, those types of things. And most attorneys and colleagues are more than willing to help out. And so use that opportunity. For those of you who know other mentors, help each other out, network. And so, I had an attorney contact me. They didn't do litigation. They did mostly transactional. Their lawyer was interested in litigation. So they contacted me, and that lawyer came with me to depositions, trials, pre-trials, and things like that, so they could get a little bit more of the litigation experience. So that's one way that you can make it work if you're not in the same practice area. Some other ideas, if you're part of a firm or part of an office, invite your mentee to lunch. If you have an office function, invite them to come to that, because part of being an attorney is very social as well. And it's important for us to have relationships with other attorneys and positive relationships with other attorneys, and to bring that lawyer in so they can start developing those friendships as well. Invite them to bar functions. You can team up with other mentors and go out as a group together. I know that the bar And the program here has many opportunities, luncheons and things like that. Check online, and there's brown bag lunches and things like that that you can bring your mentee to. As far as changes in the practice of law, I think that that's really important to keep in mind the current legal environment that we're in. And I think because the practice has changed so much, I think it's made mentoring even more important. There's been a lot of changes in the economy over the last few years, and that has changed the way we practice. It's changed the structure of law firms. You're seeing fewer large law firms. Back in the day, you would go graduate, get in with a firm, have several years to mentor under a supervising attorney there, and then go out on your own. Those opportunities aren't as readily available now, and so you're having more attorneys that are coming out of law school, and they're faced with a harsh economy, and they're having to set up their own firms. And so I think you're seeing a shift to a lot more solo practitioners. And those individuals are in need of even more guidance. They don't have supervising attorneys to go to. They don't have necessarily law partners to go to. And so I think the mentoring relationship for them is all the more important, and they need it much more because they are definitely out there on their own at this point. So I think mentors can really fill the gap and fill that buffer. So you don't have this person out, baptism by fire. They've got to go out and forge the way on their own. I think having a mentor is, a comfort for them. And then also teaching them how they can make a living being an attorney. You can know how to do legal research, know how to file pleadings and all of those things, but at the end of the day, it's a business. That new attorney may need some guidance in how are they going to do this and be successful at it. The way I view the mentoring relationship and the mentoring program, I think we are really stewards of our own profession. And I know Utah is a wonderful place to practice law. I have practiced other places. I did practice in California before I came to Utah, and it's a completely different world. We have very high standards of professionalism, high standards of civility here. For the most part, most of the attorneys I work with are professional, they're courteous, they're kind, they're pleasant to deal with, and that is a wonderful environment to practice in, and we're very lucky to be able to enjoy that. So I think we really have a unique and a really special situation here. And as these new attorneys come out and graduate from law school, I think it's our responsibility to educate and to shape them into the type of attorneys that we want to practice with. Because at the end of the day, these are the individuals that are going to be on the other side of you or somebody else in a courtroom. They're going to be adversaries. They're going to be opposing counsel. And I think it's very important that we maintain that high level of professionalism, that high level of civility, and that we really be stewards of that and make sure that these new attorneys are being educated and learning to be professional and courteous. And so I view it as an opportunity to train my future colleagues and also future adversaries to be ethical, professional, good attorneys, capable and competent. And then just to help these individuals integrate into the real world, to find their place, to define their professional reputation, and to define what kind of attorney they're going to be. I think we can have a huge role in helping somebody define what type of an attorney am I going to be. I'm going to be somebody that's difficult and unethical, or am I going to be somebody who's going to strive as an officer of the court to always promote the highest levels of professionalism, civility, and ethics. And I think that's very important. And if we can serve as that role model to the new attorney, then we're going to be creating overall a better group of lawyers, a better profession. I view it as a public service as well. I think it's very important for those of us who have been through those rough waters and have navigated that to pay it forward. and to impose on other people that view that we have as an attorney. It's cultivating a legal community based on service, based on respect, based on professionalism. And the question is, what type of a community do you want to work and practice in? Personally, I want to work and practice in a legal community where we have the highest standards and the highest respect for one another. And so I would view the mentoring relationship and the mentoring opportunity really as an investment. You're going to get what you put into it, and as well as that new lawyer. If you invest freely, if you invest quality time, this is definitely a rewarding experience, and you will reap tenfold what you put into it, and it far outweighs any time commitment. For me, it's helped me have almost a new lease and a perspective on the practice of law, to have a fresh view and a new, I think, pride and excitement about the profession. Some of us, after you've practiced for a number of years, you tend to get tired. You may feel burned out. You may get somewhat jaded. You forget about all of those ideals that you had when you graduated from law school, about justice and fairness and equality and all of these wonderful things. And when you mentor these new attorneys coming out of law school, they are bright, they are shiny, they have all of this excitement, they have all of these ideas, they have all of these notions, and it's just refreshing. It reminds you of why you got into the profession. It reminds you of why you wanted to become an attorney. And I think sometimes after practicing 10, 15, 20 years, we tend to forget that. And I found that the new lawyer just kind of brings that back into focus, back into my practice, and it's helped me have a renewed excitement for the practice, and to be excited about it and to really see it through the eyes of this new lawyer. And so it's been just an invaluable experience. You can build lasting, quality, professional relationships. I have mentees that still come see me. In fact, this afternoon, my very first attorney that I mentored popped into my office and just to say hi. And that was probably over 5 years ago that I mentored him, and he comes back and sees me from time to time. And you know, he's doing well, he's got a successful practice now, and it's just really rewarding, and it's really nice to see this individual that you've helped become successful. So your willingness to serve as a mentor is very appreciated, not only by the bar, not only by the legal community, your peers, but that mentee as well. Your service, your commitment, and your sharing of your time, your experience, your expertise, as well as your resources truly are a valued part of this program. I think any of the volunteer opportunities, and there are many as an attorney, I feel that this is one of the most important contributions that we can make as lawyers. So on behalf of the bar and on behalf of the Mentor Training and Resource Committee, I thank you for your efforts and for undertaking to serve as a mentor.